guys, so now it's time to check my progress. So you should have already completed it, and your pencils and erasers should be completely put away. And on your desk should be your check my progress, or your area where your working table, whatever, should be your check my progress, your extra sheet of paper, and your red pen. Nothing else should be out, otherwise that could be considered cheating. So right now, if you did not write your name, number, and date at the top, go ahead and write it with your red pen, and then continue checking with us. Because remember, name, number, and date goes on everything. If it's not there, you lose points. A lot of you have not been writing your names on things, and it gets very, very confusing for me. So write your name, number, and date at the top with your pen, with your red pen, if you don't have it. Okay, so number 1 is a vocabulary check. What we're doing is we are choosing a vocabulary word to complete each sentence. So in our word bank, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 units of measurement, and then we have a type of measurement. Remember, ounces, pounds, and tons are each units of customary units of weight. A second is a unit of time. Weight is how heavy or light things are. So let's go ahead and fill it out. A rhinoceros weighs about 2 blank. Well, we know because we have a number before it that we are using a unit. We can't use second because second is a unit of time, not a unit of weight. Rhinoceroses are really, really big, so the answer is 2 tons. If you put a capital T, you are correct. If you put ton without the S, okay, it's supposed to be plural, but okay. If you put anything other than the word ton, tons, or a capital T, you are incorrect. That means if you put a lowercase t, you are incorrect because you're telling me that a rhinoceros weighs about 2 tons, and that is not correct. Now a mouse. A mouse weighs about 1 blank. Well, we'll think of like a really small mouse. And a mouse is small. It definitely doesn't weigh a ton. It can't weigh a second because that's a unit of weight. And a pound is probably still a little too big. So a mouse weighs about 1 ounce. If you put ounce or OZ, either one, you are correct. Now the next one, a squirrel weighs about 3 blank. Well, this is where you could kind of tell that if you put pound here, you probably weren't correct because we definitely can't say that a squirrel weighs about 3 ounces because they are bigger. So a squirrel weighs about 3 pounds. If you put pound without the S or LB, you are correct. If you put anything else, you are incorrect. Now this one, the blank of an object describes how heavy it is. Well, we know that can't be a unit, so we are going to use our only measurement word. And we know that weight describes whether an object is heavy or light. Now the last one, there are 60 blank in a minute. Well, we know there's a number, so we have to use a unit. A minute is a unit of time. The only unit of time up at the top is second, so that means there are 60 seconds in a minute. If you put second without the S or S, you are correct. Okay, now let's move on to the conversion tables. Okay, so for number 2, we have ounces and pounds. Ounces are small. Pounds are big or bigger. Now remember, if we go small to big, that means we divide. But we're not going small to big because we don't know the small unit. So that means we're going big to small. So that means I will be multiplying. Now let's check to see if I have to stop, if there are any units between these two. On our chart that has all of our types of units, ounces and pounds are right next to each other, so that means I just have to do one step. I'm going to from big to small, so that means I multiply. I always start with what I know, which in this case is the pounds. So I'm finding the ounces in 1 pound, 3 pounds, 5 pounds, and 7 pounds. Now I need to multiply by something. Well, I'm not going to multiply by the pounds in a pound because that would just be multiplying by 1 each time. I'm going to multiply by the number of ounces in a pound, which I know from my conversion chart is 16. Now I have to multiply. Well, I can do 1 times 16 because I can use the identity property of multiplication. 1 times any number equals that number. So that means there are 16 ounces in 1 pound. However, for 3 pounds, 5 pounds, and 7 pounds, that is not a basic fact, and I can't use the identity property, so I'm going to come to my separate sheet of paper. If you did not do this, you need to do it now with your red pen. You will be counted off. And for number 2, I need to set these problems up and down. I always put the number with more digits at the top, and then I multiply. 3 times 6 is 18. Regroup the 1 to the tens place. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. So that means 3 times 16 is 48. So there are 48 ounces in 3 pounds. Next, we're trying to figure out how many ounces are in 5 pounds. So I'm going to rewrite my problem up and down. 5 times 6 is 30. Regroup the 3 to the tens place. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8, which means that 5 times 16 is 80. So there are 80 ounces in 5 pounds. Now last one for this chart. I'm going to come to my separate sheet of paper, write my problem up and down. 7 times 6 is 42. Regroup the 4 to the tens place. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 4 is 11, which means that 7 times 16 is 112. So there are 112 ounces in 7 pounds. Remember, if you are not using basic facts and patterns, or the identity property of multiplication, you have to show your work on a separate sheet of paper. So make sure, I said that a bunch of times yesterday and I think the day before. So now there are no excuses. You will lose points if you have not done that. Okay, number 2, we have hours and minutes. So we're doing time now. Well, hours are big, minutes are small. There are no units of time between hours and minutes. They are right next to each other, so that means we can do it in one step. We know the larger unit. We are trying to find the smaller unit, so that means we will multiply. We always start with what we know, which is the number of hours. So 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, and 8 hours. Now we need to multiply by something. Well, we're not going to multiply by the number of hours in an hour because that's only 1, which means we get the same answer, and we know we can't because minutes are smaller. So that means we have to multiply by the number of minutes in an hour, which we know from our conversion chart is 60. There are 60 minutes in an hour. Now these are not basic facts, but you can use basic facts and patterns to solve. So for 2 hours, 2 times 6 is my basic fact. That equals 12. There's 1 0 at the end of my factor, so I'm going to put 1 0 at the end of my product. So that means in 2 hours, there are 120 minutes. Now for 4 hours, well, the basic fact is 4 times 6, which equals 24. I'm going to put that 1 0 from the factor at the end of a product, which means that in 4 hours, there are 240 minutes. Now for 6 hours, my basic fact is 6 times 6, which equals 36. There's 1 0 at the end of the factor, so I'm going to move it to the end of my product, which means that in 6 hours, there are 360 minutes. Now for the last one, 8 hours. Well, my basic fact is 8 times 6. That equals 48. There's 1 0 at the end of the factor, so I'm going to put that at the end of my product. So that means in 8 hours, there are 480 minutes. Okay, so make sure when you have these conversion charts, you need to have your equation to the side. And then if you can't use basic facts and patterns, or the identity property of multiplication, you show your work on your separate sheet of paper. Okay, let's move to the back. Okay, so number 4 says, is it more reasonable to say that a pen weighs 2 ounces, 2 pounds, or 2 tons. So this one, we're just picking the best estimate. Now 2 ounces would be about the weight of 2 strawberries. 2 pounds would be about the weight of 2 pineapples. And 2 tons would be about the weight of 2 elephants. So we know a pen is small. 2 elephants would be so much heavier, I mean, you can't even compare the two. I'm sorry, 2 tons would be so much heavier, you can't even compare the two. 2 pounds, 2 pineapples is a little closer, but it's still heavier than the pen. So that means that 2 ounces, or the weight of 2 strawberries, is the most reasonable answer. So 2 ounces is correct. Okay, now number 5. This was one where you had to use your reasoning skills. It says, a hippopotamus eats 100 pounds of food a day. How many days would it take the hippo to eat 1 ton of food? Okay, so we know that 1 ton equals 2,000 pounds. So what that means is we have to figure out how many groups of 100 can fit into 2,000. So what that means is 100 times what equals 2,000? Because 100 pounds a day for how many days would be 2,000 pounds or 1 ton? Well, how we can solve that is we can figure out how many times greater 2,000 is than 100. So let's use our basic facts. We know that to get 2, we have to say 1 times 2. Now if we did 100 times 2, well, we would do the basic fact, which is 1 times 2, which equals 2, and then put those 2 zeros at the end. That's only 200, so that means we have to put an extra 0 in there somewhere. We can't add it to the 100 because we can't change how much food, how many pounds of food the hippopotamus each eats day. So we're going to take that extra 0 and put it at the end of the 2. So now we have 100 times 20. The basic fact is 1 times 2, which equals 2. And then we have 1, 2, 3 zeros, which if we put at the end is 1, 2, 3 zeros. So the answer has to be 100 pounds a day for 20 days to eat 2,000 pounds or 1 ton. So the answer is 20 days. Now you may have solved that a different way. You had to use some reasoning skills because we haven't worked with that. And that's okay as long as you did show some work and you did it on your own. So as long as you've shown work and you ended up with 20 days, you are correct. Okay, now number 6. An ostrich egg weighs 64 ounces. Is the weight of the ostrich egg greater than 5 pounds? Explain. So what we're doing here is we're doing an equality. So 64 ounces, is that greater, less than, or equal to 5? Started to write the abbreviation, but I wrote the whole word here, so I need to do that over here. Is it greater than, less than, or equal to 5 pounds? The question is asking, is it greater? So that means we're going to have a yes or no. Because if 64 ounces is greater than, if 64 ounces is less than or greater than 5 pounds, less than or equal to 5 pounds, that means the answer is no. If 64 ounces is greater than 5 pounds, the answer is yes. So what that means is we have to get both of these into the same unit. Remember, it's easier to take the larger unit and convert it to the smaller unit. So on our separate sheet of paper, what you should have done is said 5 pounds equals how many ounces? Well, we know pounds are bigger than ounces, so we're going from big to small. Pounds and ounces are right next to each other on that chart with the weights. So that means we only have to do one step. We start with what we know, which is 5 pounds, and then we're going to multiply it by the number of ounces in a pound, which is 16. 16 times 5, well 6 times 5 is 30, and I know I have it here, but I'm doing what you should have done. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8. So that means 5 pounds is equal to 80 ounces. So if we imagine this 5 pounds as 80 ounces, we can see that 64 ounces is less than 80 ounces or 5 pounds. So that means the answer to the question, is the weight of the ostrich egg greater than 5 pounds? Well, here's our ostrich egg. Here's our 5 pounds. It is not. So no, 5 pounds equals 80 ounces, which is larger than 64 ounces. So for that problem, you needed to have no. You needed to have show your work to show how you know, because you converted pounds to ounces. And then you need to say why. So you needed to have an explanation, show your work, and you needed to have the answer no. Okay, let's move on to number 7. Okay, so number 7 says, Jordan spent 3 hours at a local farm. How many minutes did he spend at the farm? So what we're doing is we're just doing a straight conversion, no extra steps. There was an extra step in the new version of the book, but you didn't have to do that. So you had to say 3 hours is equal to how many minutes? And now to solve that, you needed to go to your separate sheet of paper. I'm going to do it over here because I don't have any room over there. So I'm imagining this is my separate sheet of paper, and I've got 3 hours equals some minutes. Well, I know hours are bigger than minutes, and they are right next to each other on our chart, our time chart, so that means I'm going to be multiplying. I start with what I know, which is 3 hours, and then I'm going to multiply not by the number of hours in an hour, but the number of minutes in an hour, which is 60. I can use basic facts and patterns to solve this. 3 times 6 is 18. There's 1 0 at the end of our factor, so I need to put it at the end of the product, which means that in 3 hours there are 180 minutes. Make sure that you showed that work and that you have the unit, otherwise you will be counted off. Okay, number 8. You know what, let's look at number 7. If you had this and 12 minutes part, all you would do is once you found out that there were 180 minutes in 3 hours, you would just add that 12 to get 192 minutes in 3 hours and 12 minutes. So you didn't have to do that because your book did not say 12 minutes. Okay, now number 8, it says, which is the most reasonable estimate for the weight of a bowling ball? So we're just choosing the best one. Is it 8 tons, or the same as 8 elephants or 8 small cars? 80 pounds, or the same as 80 pineapples or 80 loaves of bread? 8 pounds, or the same as 8 loaves of bread or 8 pineapples? Or 8 ounces, which would be the same as 8 slices of bread or 8 strawberries? Well, we know it wouldn't be 8 tons because then nobody would be able to pick it up. It wouldn't be 80 pounds because then very few people would be able to pick it up. And it wouldn't be very fun to play with if you have to pick up 80 pounds every time it's your turn. 8 ounces is too light. It might roll far, but it wouldn't be able to knock down those pins. So 8 pounds is the best estimate. Okay, make sure that, let's see, that's the last check my progress of this chapter. It's really the last time that we will be doing many conversions. So make sure you start studying. I did include this anchor chart in today's packet. This will help you to study because you do have to memorize these conversions. You are not allowed to use a conversion chart on the test. Again, you are not allowed to use a conversion chart on the test. You must memorize these. I've been telling you this since the very beginning, that you will not be able to use a conversion chart. So this anchor chart right here has every single conversion chart in one place. It has some reminders and examples over here. So just make sure you pay attention to which one it is. And again, You do need to memorize this. You may not use this conversion chart on the test, otherwise it would be cheating. So make sure that you are studying that conversion chart. You have no homework tonight, so tonight would be a good day to do it. If you want to start practicing, you can do some IXLs and try not to use your conversion chart, but you may not use your conversion chart on the test. Okay, so if you have any questions, go ahead and reach out to me later today between 1 and 5 p.m.